So I think what we see from the two presentations is that poverty has a deep impact on children. And one of the challenges we face in America is the conversation that we want to have. Do we want to spend extraordinary resources building little children's brains and minds and compensating for the impact of poverty, or do we want to really focus on solving poverty through economic policy? And so, you know, there are several ways that we could go about improving the lives of children. And we're here today to talk about the one that is less focused on economic policy. But I would suggest that we need to bring both things together more, very much along the lines that Sheila raised in terms of the fact that income inequality and wage stagnation and the figures of 22% of children in poverty, and that being the fastest rising share of people in poverty in America, is really a statement about a failed economic policy in America. And so we will put the burden on the education system and the government, but we do need to have that conversation. One reason we need to have it is I had the opportunity before coming to Public Citizens for Children and Youth of spending 2 years in Washington at the Center for American Progress, where I was a senior fellow, and my research was on strategies to improve the outcomes for children in poverty. And one of the things I did was look at how other countries are really looking at that challenge. And some alarming things struck me, which was one that, you know, already China is graduating more kids from high school than we are graduating. And they have a goal of having 50% of their children in pre-K for 3 years by 2020. That is 200 million children, right? We have 3.5 million kids in pre-K. India, where neither China or India really have an interest in poverty elimination. They have many more people than they need for their economy. But they understand that their economic future is linked to the degree to which their students graduate high school prepared for the colleges of the world, not just in their countries. And so both India and China are aggressively upgrading their early childhood infrastructure. I joked before I began this research that, oh, we're going to find out in China they're having those kids do multiplication by the time they're in kindergarten. That was like a joke. Turns out that the researchers at Teachers College are intimately involved in helping China create its assessment systems. And what they found is that in China, at kindergarten, children are already required to do 3-digit multiplication. They did a survey of their children. When they do a survey of children, it is of 6 million children. And what they found was 3-digit multiplication by the time you enter kindergarten was asking a little much, but most of their students were able to do 2-digit multiplication. I'm just not suggesting that is developmentally appropriate, but I am suggesting that there is something that they're putting an extraordinary amount of effort into boosting their early learning skills in China and in India, and they're doing that because of the economic imperative of the fact that that's how they're going to solve their poverty and wage and income inequality challenges. So what's happening here in Pennsylvania? The issues in Pennsylvania look very much like the map of the U.S. Rural Pennsylvanians or children are not doing well. Increasingly, suburban Pennsylvania children are failing, and obviously we have alarming rates of child poverty in our urban centers. And so recent research that we've been working with partners on the state show that 70% of children in Pennsylvania do not have access to high-quality pre-K. I'm sorry, they don't have access to high-quality pre-K. And what it says in the county, this is a statewide fact sheet. So there are nearly 300,000 kids in Pennsylvania who are eligible for pre-K, anything 3- or 4-year-olds would get, high-quality childcare, Head Start, pre-K offered through a school district or community provider. And only 18% of those kids in the state are getting publicly supported pre-K. And what we know is of the kids who are in publicly supported pre-K, only 20% of those are in high quality. So let's look right here where we live. And first of all, let me say that Dr. Fantuzzo has done spectacular research about the children right here where we live and could be doing this lecture in his sleep in terms of the benefits of high quality pre-K. So it is really kind of him to give us the floor. But most families in our region would have to come up with somewhere between $22,000 to $24,000 a year to get their kids in high-quality pre-K. And as we know, that's not a viable situation for the share of families who are needing to get their kids into pre-K in our region. The state does provide a subsidy for families under 200% of the federal poverty level. From the earlier slide, you might remember that's a family earning around $40,000. Family of 4, we're earning about $40,000 a year. So there is a partial subsidy. But the subsidy is in short supply, and the cost if you're outside the subsidy system is beyond reach. So in the 4 counties, Bucks, Montco, Delco, Chester, right around here, there's 144,000 children under 5. 38% of them are considered at risk, meaning they are in low-income families or from families with limited educational backgrounds. That number of children at risk, mostly because of poverty, has grown by 49% in 4 years. So this is suburban poverty outside of Philly has grown by 49% since 2008. The implications of that are very troubling for our suburban school systems. 58,000 kids in the suburbs are not graduating able to do reading or math skills at the 11th grade. Those numbers are going to rise if we don't address the early childhood needs of the burgeoning number of poor children in the suburbs. At the same time that these numbers are rising, the Head Start seats in the suburbs have been cut, and so have the funds for child care subsidies. As a result, only 20% of the kids throughout the suburbs who are in families earning under $40,000 a year have access to high-quality pre-K. So what's that look like? The blue slice is the 20%, 21% of kids in our suburbs who we know are likely in programs that are going to prepare them for school ready to learn. So 8 out of 10, not happening. In Philadelphia, we're doing a little bit better because we have many more Head Start slots in the city, and we have school district investment in pre-K and school district investment in high-quality childcare. And we have the former person who built that system, Donna, with us here in the audience. We can ask her all the questions about this afterwards. But at this point, we have 30% of our kids who are lower income. This is kids who are in families earning under $60,000 a year who are in high-quality pre-K in the city. So what's that mean? Well, what that means is that there are 28,000 kids who are 3- and 4-year-olds in Philadelphia who need to get access to pre-K who are not able to do so. How does that correlate to anything? We have 61,000 kids graduating from the Philadelphia School District each year unable to do reading and math. So these things are connected, and unfortunately, because of wage stagnation, we're seeing the trends going the wrong way. So, meanwhile, as I said, funds are declining. These little bars are the different kinds of state programs that we fund in Pennsylvania. We have a child care subsidy program, pre-K program, we supplement Head Start money. So we have 3 pools of money that are available to get children into some kind of care. Pre-K and Head Start, high quality, very small share of child care, high quality. What you see is that the 2011 bars, which are orange, are higher than the 2014 bars. We are cutting our investment in early childhood education in the same, and this is statewide, while our statewide poverty numbers, our suburban poverty numbers are continuing to rise. We are $48 million down in spending compared to 2010-11. The state is doing some good things. We do have a quality rating system that is considered pretty robust, not among the top in the country, but increasingly, well, not increasingly, it is seen as a strong quality system to rate our child care centers. We have something called Keystone Stars. It's kind of like Expedia, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. The higher the star, the better. That's our quality rating improvement system, and we're working on this year making it even stronger. But the chief thing that you use to get up the stars rating is that you have staff with a bachelor's or an associate's degree. They're the biggest inputs. The problem is that you only get $5 more a day per kid if you're at the high star versus you get $1 a day if you're a low star, and at the high star you have $5 a day per kid. So that you don't generate enough at like 20 kids or 40 kids or 100 kids to be able to pay the salaries necessary to pay for somebody with an associate's or bachelor's degree. So we do have a tiered reimbursement system, which many states do not. Pennsylvania can take pride in that. But the differentiation is not sufficient to drive the providers to improve their quality. So we hear from providers, number one, as I just said, that the system is not set up economically with economic stability that would enable them to bring in the quality staff that research shows are going to boost student learning. And also many providers think that we are, I hate to say this in a university setting, that maybe college degree isn't the best measure of somebody's capacity to teach a young child. And we are increasingly looking at output assessments of the CLASS. Some of you may be familiar with CLASS, which is an observational tool, moving a little bit away from an academic, you get a bachelor's, that makes you a good teacher, and more to an observational assessment to determine if a teacher is good. And with CLASS, perhaps more providers will buy into the fact that they need to pay for the people who can do really well. We hear from parents in this region that co-pays are lower in lower quality programs, so that's where they're going to go because they're poor. Co-pays aren't always collected in lower quality programs, so hey, it's free. I'm going to go there if I'm poor. Lower quality programs are actively using incentives to recruit parents to come. I don't think that's a bad thing. They're giving away diapers, they're giving away books. That's a good thing. The higher quality providers are stretched with their money, so it's harder for them to compete in that kind of marketplace. And also, parents tell us over and over again, they can't tell what's a good early childhood provider versus what's a bad one. As long as it's safe and close, that's good. So the systems are not communicating the signals effectively, financially or intellectually, to get the results that we need. So PA, so those of you who are familiar with what Pennsylvania's ranking used to be, in 2004 we were the envy of the country because we created a really robust system, and that happened because in 2002 there was a statewide campaign called Pre-K Counts that was a public-private partnership to really make early childhood an issue in the gubernatorial election that led the way to Ed Rendell becoming governor. Now, full disclosure, I was Ed Rendell's Secretary of Policy for 8 years, right? But I was not working for Ed Rendell when he ran for governor. I was running a competitor campaign with Pre-K Counts called Good Schools Pennsylvania to try and get him to take the right positions on K-12. Well, both of those campaigns succeeded, and we'll talk about the early childhood work now. Pennsylvania, before Ed Rendell was governor, this is not about Ed Rendell, but this is what happened then. We were one of 9 states that did not put any money into Head Start, so we left that ranking and we began to expand Head Start. We created an integrated early learning infrastructure that brought all those bars together, child care, Head Start, pre-K, and the K1, 2, 3 transition. We built the tiered reimbursement system in STARS. We boosted the investment in child care access. 77% of parents who were low income could get access to child care subsidy compared to 53% in 2004. This is from 4 to 10. We boosted the quality of providers. 35% of the providers were in STARS 3 or 4 compared to 18% in 2004. We expanded pre-K to 35% of the kids from 18% before the governor began the investments. And then the share of providers working their ways up the STARS ranking, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, went from 32% to 67%. These were numbers that child care experts across the state and early childhood experts across the state talked about all the time. We were the envy of the country. So one of the things that was really stunning is that we found that when the research really did show that these investments paid off. We saw in school districts that, that kids were testing in their language and literacy skills at the kindergarten level. At the pre-K level. In the spring, when they came in the fall, they would be at 19% on their literacy and language skills. And by the end of the academic year, in the June, they would be at 71%. So we were measuring progress in programs. So we were seeing kids were learning while they were in programs, and that was good. That's exactly what you want to see, right? But what we're also seeing is the results when the kids transition to the school districts. So what was really important is that we were seeing a 20% increase in the share of kids who, when they entered the school, were outperforming from a high-quality early childhood program, outperforming the kids who hadn't access to those programs. These are 2 school districts, Pottstown, those of you who live here know where Pottstown is, Tyrone, really rural Pennsylvania school district. And again, we looked at these school districts because we wanted to show that it's not, these things are not just important for urban kids. Head Start's not just something that we need for African American kids, but poor whites and rising suburban poverty kids, when they get access to high quality early childhood education, they will outperform the kids who didn't get it, who enter their school districts. We also found that the increases investments in early childhood, if scaled, would drive down school district investment in special ed. And one of the reasons for that is because high quality early childhood providers are more likely to screen their children through ages and stages or other instruments for developmental delays and get them access to resources than lower quality programs or no programs, parents alone. So given that if you have greater access, kids are going to get early intervention, they are going to come to school with less K1, 2, 3 speech and language needs, which are the fastest rising share of special ed class at the school district. So part of this was to say, look, when you invest, you save money that can be freed up for other more productive uses than for special ed that could have been remediated while the child was very young. So one of the things we know in the political process, having spent now 24 years in the belly of the beast in the political process, is that research really doesn't drive politics. What drives politics is emergencies, Sandy, the hurricanes, right? Localized or pilot-oriented solutions. The Pottstown Early Childhood Center, the senator loved the idea, he got them some money, that kind of stuff. Broad coalitions. So, we see increasing pressure on the states to get Medicaid expansion to occur, and those coalitions are getting broader and broader, and that's what's going to force that to happen. Money talks, certainly in Pennsylvania, where we have no campaign limits. Champions who have leverage or gravitas can really make a difference, but mostly relentlessness is what makes the political system move. And so we're beginning a new relentless campaign, and it's called Pre-K for PA. And the idea is to guarantee access to high-quality pre-K for every 3 or 4-year-old in Pennsylvania. 67% of the voters are with us, including a majority of Republican women and independents. So our goal is to make pre-K a defining issue in the upcoming election. We have to do it all over again. We did it in 2002, but relentlessness is the task of the day. We have 10 founding organizations, a very broad coalition of civic, business, and child advocacy and early childhood providers and educators. Our strategies are very diverse, and they rely on local mobilization. They rely on social media. And may I ask that Della stand up? Della in the back. A former student of Professor Vantuzzi, a staffer for the Pre-K for PA campaign, is here to meet you. Because if you live in the suburbs, we really need your help. Because this campaign is about building a base of voters in the very area where the gubernatorial candidates need to get votes. And they need to win the suburbs. Whoever's going to win this state is going to win the suburbs. So that's what we're trying to do. Let me, in parting, just say that if you happen to live in a suburban county and want to become an expert in your county, on your way out you'll see reports. One for Bucks, Chester, Monco, and Delco, and it looks at the state of early childhood infrastructure in your county. You will also see postcards that give you the chance to tell your elected official what you want them to do this year around early childhood education funding. And you will see information for Pre-K for PA, because it is relentlessness mixed with research that's going to get the results that we need. Thank you.